It's time to talk college basketball, March Madness, bracketology, bracket busters, the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight, the Final Four, all these catchphrases in one here on our program with Marc Lawrence of PlaybookSports.com. Mark, I know we haven't talked college basketball since last year, but we've been promising everybody that we were going to do this during our football season, and we're finally here.
We are finally here, Greg. It's March Madness tournament time. We just put together our Playbook College March Madness Tourney Guide, which is jam-packed with information. We'll talk a lot about that on the show here today, getting ready for the March Madness tournament. And then after this is all over, I'll switch gears, put on my football hat, and get back to the Football Guide Preview Magazine work.
That's right. Because matter of fact, myself, I got a deadline with our lads for the draft guide on the 25th, which is next Friday. Now, I could have started, because this is all about team needs for the draft.
Right.
So I could have started writing this out a month ago.
Right.
But all I could do is put out notes, because I can't write anything because of exactly what's taken place the last couple of days. It's just crazy. Everything that's happened over the last few days changes just about everything that you would have written about 3 weeks ago.
There's so many moving parts when it comes to getting ready for the NFL football draft. And now with these trades, these free agency signings, everything going on, like you say, all of the notes you put together, they're moot in a lot of cases here. So you're better off just doing your work when it counts. And I'm going to look forward to that show you put together for our lads. It'll be a real nice show, I'm sure.
By the way, I want to remind everybody to head over to Patreon. That is for our the packages that we have available, and we've been touting. Obviously, we have had our golf programs up on Patreon, and it's /PrimeSN. Patreon.com/PrimeSN. And you can check it out. Obviously, we've got a link on our homepage here. And what you'll see up there is we have 2 tiers for Playbook. So this is for the viewers. And I think this is a great opportunity for anybody that it could be an old client. It could be somebody that's been thinking about getting on board with you guys for the newsletters for college basketball or the NFL season that's coming up, as we just talked about. But we only have 2 tiers, and we're making it pretty simple. Now, the college basketball season, yes, it's underway. But what we're offering is the opportunity for you to choose whether or not you want to take advantage of the college basketball newsletters for this tournament or next tournament. And that's combined also with this season's NFL newsletter and everything that we have that you can find out that is listed in the tiers. And that includes if it's for college basketball, whether it's for this season or next season, you've got the Hoops newsletter, you've got the March Madness tournament guide, you got the Sweet 16 guide. Like I said, if you want, you can wait until 23 for that. But you can put it down now. By the way, by doing it, you get 20% off the packages. That's the whole deal here. That is pretty awesome. So you get 20% off. Matter of fact, like for instance, if you spend $5 on Playbook Tier 1, you get the 20% off for either the 3 college packages, which I just mentioned, or the 3 for football, which is the football newsletter, the Playbook magazine, and the college football bowl package. So, but all you have to do is spend another $5 on a $10 Playbook tier, and you can get a 20% discount for purchasing all 6 of those packages. And like I said, you could choose this year's college basketball tournament, or say, you know what, let's do the 2022 football season and the 2023 basketball season as part of the deal. We offer that as well. You also will get a free couple of months, 1 month, 2 months for Mark's daily emails that he gets, the coffee cup emails that come out every day from Marc Lawrence. So again, check that out, patreon.com/PrimeSN. Or just check out the link. You can take your time, look over the tiers. And again, the packages, which you're going to be getting, are the same packages that you would be getting at Playbook. But by just paying the $5 or the $10 for the tiers, you're going to get 20% discount on the choices that you want for either basketball or football. So I think it's a great deal for anybody that was already, like I said, either interested in this, Mark, or somebody that's been thinking about it. Well, here's a great way to now go ahead and get involved because we're giving you 20% off.
Yeah, you can't beat that, Greg. 20% off on anything is good, and especially getting to know the people that are watching the show and are followers of our work here together. So, a great idea. Just sign up, get that 20% discount, patreon.com/PrimeSN.
Let's get started. So, college basketball tournament officially started yesterday. And but with the brackets and the bracket contests, you still have time to put them in. You can put them in tonight. You can put them in tomorrow morning. Most of these brackets aren't gonna penalize you if you don't get it in before the first 4 games, which I always think is a good idea. Indiana won last night, which was not a big surprise in one of the 2 big games because they're playing real well. What's kind of stick with that, because if you take a look at Indiana right now, they're in the East region, and they would be taking on St. Mary's now on Thursday, and they're a 3-point dog as we speak. 2.5 3-point dog against St. Mary's. I just like the way Indiana's on a roll right now. I actually think they're a pretty good, especially with that first 4, the trends for the first 4 teams. I think they might have the best chance to make a move as one of those first 4 Sweet 16 teams. Which, by the way, if you want, you can get 7-1 odds on Indiana to reach the Sweet 16. I am concerned with UCLA. There is no question about that. But I'm willing to maybe roll the dice on 7-1 shot because they're going to get probably 2-1 plus 250 against UCLA on the money line. If they get that far, which I think they will, then why not just go ahead and go for it with 7-1 to get to the Sweet 16? And you know what? Baylor, as the defending champ, is going to go down once they get to the Sweet 16. And the reason why that's going to happen is because if you just take a look at history, the last repeat champion, by the way, was Florida in 2007. The last defending champion to make it past the Sweet 16 was also Florida in 2007. How crazy that sounds. So I think UCLA and Indiana, I think those 2 teams have a good shot to make it to the Sweet 16.
Well,
One of those 2 teams.
Yeah, Indiana is obviously going to have to win here this weekend, but I like their chances, as you said, Greg, because history shows us that teams coming out of the first 4 games, those 4 winners, have produced at least 1 winner in the follow-up game. I believe it's 7 of the last 8 or 8 of the last 9 years. Last year was the first time it didn't happen. It snapped that streak. So I would say
it's 9 out of the last 10.
9 out of the last 10. There you go. So one of these teams is likely to advance, and my vote would also go to the Indiana Hoosiers. What you've got here is a big class mismatch. You got the Big Ten Conference with 9 teams in the tournament against the West Coast Conference, and one of the reasons that I do not have Gonzaga making the Final Four is because of their strength of schedule. Well, guess where St. Mary's resides? In the West Coast Conference with that same weak strength of schedule. So you're weighing the West Coast Conference against the Big Ten Conference. I don't think there's any comparison. I'm with you on Indiana to pull the rug out on St. Mary's.
Yeah, and again, I think that's going to me, I think when we talk, that's going to be, so if it all goes down on Thursday, then Saturday could be Indiana against UCLA for the right to play in the Sweet 16. What I love about this tournament is you have all of this, you got the Sunday selection, then within a couple of days, you got these first 4 games, and then by the end of the week, you're down to 16 teams. I mean, it's just so crazy. But that's the fun part. That's why I love this week, Sunday to Sunday, better than anything else in the tournament. I think this week, especially because you get most of the upsets that happen this week as well.
Well, there's no better time to be in Las Vegas to watch the March Madness tournament than this weekend. Yeah. These first 2 rounds of games are just wall-to-wall filled with excitement. The sports books are overflowing. It's just an atmosphere that you can't replicate. I don't care what sport it is. It's this weekend here for March Madness, and it's aptly named March Madness, especially in Las Vegas.
Also in the East, a couple of things here I wanted to touch up on. First of all, one of my best bets for me is going to be, and I think we're going to disagree on this. I was looking over your newsletter, but I like Virginia Tech against Texas. Now, I noticed a couple of things that you have on the newsletter too, odds wise, is that Texas has dropped 8 straight covers in round 1 games. Meanwhile, the ACC is 6-2 against the spread as a round 1 dog. So I liked Virginia Tech before I saw that. So I like that. I just like the way Virginia Tech, and I actually liked them last week. I was able to make some money on them last week because I just felt the ACC is obviously down this year, and their coach is kind of like a hot kind of coach, coming from Wofford, and so they're kind of rolling right now. And Texas has just kind of been, you kind of almost expect more from Texas this season, but I think we've expected more from Texas for years, which is why Shaka Smart's at Marquette.
Well, one of the reasons for those Texas numbers, as you mentioned here, they've been miserable in this tournament here. 10 straight point spread losses in a row in the NCAA tournament for the Longhorns. But those were with other coaches. This year, Chris Beard comes in from Texas Tech, who's very tourney tested. This is a basketball team here that was seeded a lot higher to begin the season than where they are right now. And in fact, another reason that I like Texas in this game is they come in here as the number 6 seed in the tournament, whereas Virginia Tech comes in as the 11 seed, yet they find themselves favored over the 6-seeded Texas Longhorns. Though that's a no-no in the first round of the tournament with gaps of that wide. There's a 5 gap in the seeds favoring the lower seed Virginia Tech here, who just pulled a tournament upset underdog and won their tournament by playing 4 games in 4 days.
Yep.
Teams who play 4 games in 4 days and win their tourney oftentimes meet with point spread failure in the first round of this tournament. So you wrap that all up, to me, it all comes out of my database. That's why I'll be siding with Texas in this game.
Also, as far as that region is concerned, the East region, the Marquette, North Carolina game is going to be tricky because we've got a new coach also here. You just talked about the new coach at Texas. Who is a pro, potentially. I can't see this being a pro for North Carolina with their new coach because North Carolina has won 17 of 18 round 1 matchups, but that's with a different coach. And again, the ACC's down this year. Marquette's got Shaka Smart, so he knows what he's doing, even though, again, it didn't work out at Texas. Marquette's also, to me, maybe I'm thinking of maybe putting them in a 7-1 as a Sweet 16, again, only because Baylor, to me, based on history, will slip up at some point before they even get a chance to get to the Elite Eight. But I'm kind of torn between Marquette and North Carolina.
Well, one of the reasons North Carolina is seated as low as they are, is because of their poor play in Quad 1 games. That's the first quadrant of games, and that's how those net rankings are determined. They're using the net rankings now these days instead of the RPI rankings, and then segregating them into 4 different quads, 4 different tiers of competition. And against the top level competition in Quad 1, North Carolina played 11 opponents. They only won 3 of those games. That's what hurt them in the seeding in this particular NCAA basketball tournament. But as you mentioned here, this team knows how to win first-round games. At least they did under Roy Williams in the past and all their other great coaches. But I'm still with you. I think North Carolina edges out Marquette in this game here. Shaka Smart met with all that great success with VCU when he was a young basketball coach, and he hasn't met with anything close to that in his stops since then. First year at Marquette here. I think this game goes down to whoever scores last in the contest. But I'm going to side with history with you, with North Carolina to beat Marquette.
And as far as coming out of this region, as I mentioned, I'll probably do Indiana at 7-1 to make the Sweet 16, and that would mean that they'd have to upset UCLA. But I'm also willing to put money on UCLA to win the championship at 18-1. I think those are pretty good odds for UCLA, battle-tested, the coach, and all of that. So if I can get a UCLA-Indiana matchup on Saturday, then, and again, here's my theory is that whoever wins that game will then beat Baylor again, because the defending champs don't get to the Elite Eight. And so either UCLA or Indiana would be in the Elite Eight, and they would just need 1 win after that to get to the Final Four. So I kind of like UCLA to win the championship as well at 18-1. Not that they're going to be my top pick, but they have to be up there.
Well, UCLA, and we're going to talk about this as we review. I know you got some questions you want to run by me, and I've got some answers to those questions here. And we'll be talking about UCLA and where I see them fitting in throughout the course of this tournament. Last year, they were part of a Pac-12 surge in the NCAA tournament. The Pac-12, unlike the football Pac-12 teams, which fail miserably in bowl games, last year the Pac-12 in the NCAA tournament was the shining success. They won 12 of their 17 games and won the spread 14 times. It was all led by UCLA, who made it to the Final Four. The Bruins bring 4 starters back from that team. That's the reason they were the number 2 ranked team in the AP preseason poll this year. So what happened to UCLA along the way? They were beset with injuries more than any major college basketball team all season long, to the point that only 2 players appeared together in all 32 of their basketball games this year. So now what do we have coming into this contest here? You've got UCLA as healthy as they've been all season long. And I agree with you. I think that makes them a very dangerous commodity in this tournament. I think they blow Akron out in the opener, and I've got UCLA pegged to go deep into this NCAA run.
All right, now let's talk a little bit about the West, and that's where it starts kind of with Rutgers and Notre Dame tonight. And I know we disagree on this as well. And for me, this isn't obviously as a Rutgers fan, but to me, this would be a failure of a season for Rutgers if they can't beat Notre Dame. I mean, they're just better than Notre Dame, and that doesn't mean they're going to beat Notre Dame because they're Heckle and Jekyll Rutgers. You never know what they're going to do. But my feeling about Rutgers has been that as long as they haven't played a team already and beat them, and they've got their backs against the wall, and they play a team that, okay, here's somebody that we don't have an edge on them. We've got something to prove. Then I like their chances. If they had beaten Notre Dame earlier this year, I'd put all my money on Notre Dame. It's just the way Rutgers is, the way that the mentality is with this group. But it's interesting. They got 4 program historical pieces on their team this year. And yet they've had to struggle all the way to get in by winning those big games and losing those crappy ones, even though 1.5 of those crappy losses came without Geo Baker. But still, it shows you the mentality of this team. Lafayette, we don't care about Lafayette. We're not going to get up for that game. But Big Ten games, we haven't lost to this team yet, or we haven't beaten this team yet, I should say. Let's go get them. And that's why I like him against Notre Dame. I actually think Alabama is definitely susceptible to either Notre Dame or Rutgers, but Texas Tech should be the team to represent that little part there in the Sweet 16 nonetheless.
Well, like you say, we're on opposite sides of the Notre Dame-Rutgers game tonight. I'm playing pure pedigree here against a Rutgers team that owns the smallest or the lowest scoring margin of any team in this tournament. They've won their games by an average of 2.1 points per game.
Oh, yeah, they give their fans heart attacks, yes.
Oh, unbelievable. And let me tell you a nice little sidebar story here, if I may, if you'll allow me to digress a little bit. When I lived in Cleveland, lifetime, I lived there, born and raised there for 55 years. I used to attend the Cleveland Cavaliers games, and I had Jack Nicholson seats on the floor at the free throw line for the Cavs games. And sitting behind me in the Cavs games when they made their big run against the Bulls and Michael Jordan and all that stuff, on the team was Ron Harper for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Well, sitting right behind my wife and I on the floor was Ron Harper's wife with her newborn baby, Ron Harper Jr. And his wife, she looked like she was 16 or 17 years old. I'm sure she was older than that, but she was scared to death being a mother of a newborn and everything. She couldn't get the baby to stop crying, and my wife would get up out of her seat and go back and help her change his diapers.
That's funny.
So that's
I know
what
you're rooting for, at least.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I see. There's the kid my wife changes diapers with, and he's the star of this Rutgers basketball team today. So
crazy.
So I'll be watching that game for sure. But again, Rutgers, I think this is a basketball team, like you said, gives you a heart attack, especially if you're a fan of theirs. But I'm playing the pure pedigree here. The team has won 7 of the last 10 NCAA basketball tournaments. They're coming out of the ACC. They were the number 2 seed in the ACC. Notre Dame was. I don't think people realize that. I'm going to have them get past Rutgers here, and we'll see where they move on after this.
And then if you just look at that part of the region too, that's where you have Duke. You could get Krzyzewski against Izzo. That's possible, even though Michigan State Davidson's tricky because Davidson's got the offense that could steal a game in the tournament, and that could happen. And Michigan State hasn't, they kind of they started off strong and then they kind of ended strong, but their middle was kind of all over the place. But this is actually one of those Michigan State teams that I believe could win a few games because I don't think anybody's really expecting a whole lot from them, especially being in the same region as Gonzaga. But I'll throw some money on Michigan State because of Izzo, and I know his tournaments are getting fewer and far between. This will be Coach K's last. But you have Michigan State at 100-1 to win the championship and 40-1 to get to the Final Four. I'll throw a little bit of money on Michigan State there, but that could be a really great matchup in the second round if Michigan State can get past Davidson to take on Duke.
Yeah, we've got 2 Hall of Fame coaches in this basketball game in Davidson and Michigan State. We all know about Tom Izzo and everything he's done, how terrific he's been in this tournament here. But on the other side, Davidson, Bob McKillop, he's been the coach there for 33 years with this Davidson basketball program. And hats off to him on the tenure and the successful tenure that he's had. Now he brings this team here. They come in here off the Atlantic 10 championship game, win. Good for them. The reason that Michigan State is not seeded any higher than the 7th seed here is because they too struggled in quad 1 games this year. They were only 5-9 in those basketball games here. This is not a vintage Michigan State basketball team, and I like the momentum of Davidson to pull the rug out of Michigan State.
Okay, and that's not even a big line, right?
No,
that's like a 2-point spread or something like that.
Yeah, it's less than a field goal. Yes, right now.
Okay, so and then on top, I think, and I know you don't have Gonzaga in the Final Four. Now, there's a couple of different ways I'm looking at this. One, it's like, aren't they? I honestly didn't realize when I was really getting into college basketball when football season ended. I really didn't realize that Gonzaga hadn't won a national championship yet. I thought, they had to have won the last couple of years. They had to have. And I kept saying no, and I had to double check. They haven't won a championship yet? They've had all these really good teams the last couple of years. They haven't been able to finally do it. So it's almost like, I know this isn't their best team, but it's almost like they got to win it sooner or later. They're just too good. So that makes it kind of hard for me to go against them. But because this is not one of their best teams, I think they're susceptible. I think they're susceptible against any of these teams they might face, including Boise State. It wouldn't shock me if Boise State pulled off the upset, which is why I'm going to put a little bit of money on Boise State to get to the Sweet 16 because I like Boise State against Memphis. So my theory is I'm not getting 10-1 on the money line against Gonzaga. So I might as well just go ahead and take the chance now and say they're going to beat Memphis, and I'm going to put the 10-1 on the money line, which is basically what it is. And if they beat Gonzaga, they're in the Sweet 16, and I can get the payoff there. But you got UConn there with Hurley, Arkansas there with Musselman. That is, and then again, if they get to the Elite Eight, it could be a Duke, it could be a Michigan State, it could be a Texas Tech. So this is really tough for Gonzaga to get to the Final Four this year.
Well, this is a Gonzaga basketball team that in our newsletter, Greg, we call out the 8 elite elements, of which we've been publishing here for a long while in our tournament guide. And the teams that qualify and check these boxes, if you go back and you look at the NCAA basketball tournament, 18 of the last 19 NCAA tournament winners have come from these 8 elite elements. Last year, there were only 3 teams. Gonzaga and Baylor were 2 of those 3 teams, and they met in the championship game. This year, there are 7 teams, and lo and behold, Gonzaga is not one of those 7 teams.
Okay.
Reason why, and I was befuddled at that, why they were there last year and not this year, it's simply because their strength of schedule. It was much, much weaker this year than it was last year. Last year, meaning that outside of the WCC, where they played that conference, the West Coast Conference, they played a handful of good quality non-conference games. Not so much this year, and that strength of schedule keeps them out of the 8 elite elements. Another point that we want to make out that we mentioned here, you got to go back only one time since 2008 have all 4 seeds made the Final Four, all 4 number 1 seeds.
Absolutely.
So one of these number 1 seeds figures to be.
Oh, it might be. I think 2, because I think if you look at it here, I think it's if we even go further, it's been only twice in the last 23 years have all 4 2 seeds. Actually, that's 2 seeds. When we get to 1 seed, the 1 seed is it has to do with I think it's only like one. It's here it is. In the last whatever, I think I don't even know what it is. Probably 40 years, 38 years. One seed has made it 16 times. 2 1 seeds have made it 18 times. Those are the most. 3 1 seeds have made it only 4 times, and 4 number 1 seeds have made it just once. That was in 2008. So the bottom line is, I don't think you're going to get every year. I am never going to put more than 2 1 seeds in to the Final Four.
I would never even do that at all, especially if they're weighted in your bracket, because it's going to cost you to have to do something just like that. Again, I'll caution you again here with Gonzaga. Again, they were 10-3 in quad 1 games this year. Kudos to them, but all 3 of those losses came against teams that are in this tournament. Okay, meaning that the 3 times they took it on the jaw, it was against teams of this caliber here. So another
higher
reason,
quality quad 1 wins.
Probably higher quality, exactly, than those quad 1 teams. So another reason we left Gonzaga home this year.
All right. So again, that's why I think I would even. I think that Boise State game might even, because Leon Rice has done a really good job with that program, and they just finally got the Mountain West Championship, beating San Diego State. So they're kind of on a high, and that's 2 West teams in the West. And obviously Boise's feeling like the little sister there. So, okay, let's move on to the South. And I'm not going to put Arizona into my Final Four because of the fact, well, 1, they're in 1 seed, but 2, I just think they're too young. All their top players are sophomores and freshmen. And because of that, they're also not a very good defensive team. They're just very talented, and I get it. But I can see them getting far. I can see them getting to as far as the Elite 8, because I'm not sure about much competition here. Illinois may be the top team that they would have to face, and Illinois to me is kind of wishy-washy. And then I think maybe they go down against either Tennessee or Villanova. That's the way I have it. But I know in this particular region, you have a team. And I asked you a question of to pick a 7 seed or lower, so it's 7, 8, 9, etc., to reach the Final Four, and I was flabbergasted when you picked this one team. Who is it?
The Colorado State Rams.
Oh, where did that come from? Colorado State, yeah.
Yeah, why not? I mean, every year
they're going to beat Michigan, at least
we've got a mid-major that comes out of nowhere, okay, and does so because they're playing with good momentum. Well, you take a look at the Rams basketball team last year. They brought 5 starters back from last year's 25-win team, okay? And together they made it back here to the NCAA basketball tournament, which makes them very, very experienced. And they're the type of a team that most teams would look past and not get up for, if you will. And that's where mid-major teams pull their upsets here. So out of 7 or worse seeds, that would be my sneaker team to possibly make it to the Final Four. Will they? Not to the Final Four, probably not, but at least of the 7 or worse seeds, that's the one guy that I think can sniff, at least make perhaps maybe the Sweet 16, possibly the Elite 8.
Is that also because you don't really totally believe in Tennessee or Villanova?
Well, I don't believe in Villanova and Tennessee. My big glitch with Tennessee is their head coach, Rick Barnes. We put a coach's record in our NCAA tournament guide here, which is a really, really nice chart to have to be able to follow. And what we do is we isolate the 16 best coaches and their success inside this tournament here in their careers. And if you take a look at Barnes and stops that he's had before along the way, he has not met with a lot of success in this tournament here. He lives a lot on name and reputation. He's only 24-23 overall in the NCAA tournament, but worse in first round games, he's just 6-15 against the spread. The teams pick him apart. Never any round does he own a winning point spread record, does Barnes. So that's one of the reasons I have Tennessee stepping aside and I think going out earlier than people predict.
Yeah, and Villanova with Jay Wright, that's a complete opposite. Wright 30-13 in college tourney games, and that's why I said Villanova is a team that I probably put a couple of bucks on as well to win the championship at 14-1.
I can understand for that price as well. I'm not enamored with this Villanova team this year.
Yeah, I think the deal for me though is that I think it's more wide open this year overall nationally. So I think the whole sport has kind of gone down. So they don't have to be as talented as their last championship team. But if they play Arizona in the Elite Eight, they'll have the coaching edge and they'll have the experience edge. And I think that's something to consider.
Well, what you've also got in that matchup there is the fact that Arizona, like Gonzaga, okay, their 3 losses this year have also been against Quad 1 teams. They were 24-0 against Quad 2 or worse teams, and they suffered 3 losses to Quad 1 teams. And where are they at right now? They're playing Quad 1 competition here. So I think that makes it a little bit tougher for Arizona here. And the fact that they've got a rookie coach, a first-year head coach. Okay, never been here, never done that. And to ask him to go all the way and pull this would be, I think, a miracle in the making.
Yeah, there's not many Steve Fisher's
Correct.
stories out there.
Right.
It doesn't happen very often. Now you mentioned that there are now, and I'm assuming this is in your newsletter that there's this 7-team, as far as the formulas, the way you try to put everything together for the championship teams, that they have to do this, that, or the other thing in order to win the championship. Is that what you said? There are 7 teams that qualify based on all those numbers?
Yeah, there's 7 teams that check the boxes. They're called the 8 elite elements. And what they are is this has produced the winner of this tournament 18 of the last 19 years. The only time it didn't was when UConn had that amazing
surprising
run.
Yes.
Exactly right. They swept the Big East. They swept their way through this. They played 4 games in 4 days in the Big East. It was like a story.
They broke all the trends. Yeah.
Yes, they did. They just destroyed them, okay?
Yeah.
But anyway, those 8 elite elements, okay, those 7 teams that qualified this year are Auburn,
okay.
Baylor.
All right, I'm going to get rid of them. Ed?
Duke.
Oh, jeez, Duke. Okay.
Kansas.
You can never count on them.
Kentucky. Purdue.
They like to lose first round games. Go ahead.
And Tennessee.
Ooh, Tennessee. Can you think about another sport where you've had I'm sure it's been there, where you've had a coach like Rick Barnes that finally broke through, that had all sorts of, sort of like Lewis from the Bengals, in the NFL.
Marvin Lewis?
Yeah. Hey, success in the regular season, but can't win a playoff game. Sort of like Rick Barnes. A lot of success in the regular season, get to the tournament, can't go far. Can you think of one in the major sports where one of these guys that didn't have a lot of that success finally broke through? And you were like, oh, I didn't think he could do it, but he did it. Okay, congratulations. Good for him.
Well, right off the top of my head, coaches no, players yes. Tom Kite, a golfer, always seconditis, finally broke through, made himself a good golfer, okay? So Rick Barnes to break through, it can happen. This basketball team, the 8 elite elements, says he's got a live shot to do just that. But until it does, I'll be fading him along the way.
Yeah, I think what you probably have to do is take a look at the all-time winners, especially if we're just going to zero in on college basketball, and say, okay, who could that be? Well, would you have considered Scott Drew to be that guy before last year?
Well, he sort of came out of out of the closet. I hate to use that phrase these days,
Yeah.
but he did solidify himself with that big Baylor run last basketball season here. Now he is 17-8 all time in NCAA tournament games. So even before those 6 wins last year, he was still 11-8.
Okay.
That wasn't a catastrophe or disastrous to say, by any means. But there are other coaches that I put together for this list that didn't make this list because they've struggled in the NCAA basketball tournament. So to make this list, you have to have been a winning team in this tournament, or at least very close to a winning team. I think Shaka Smart and Mick Cronin are both one game under 500 in the NCAA basketball tournament.
Well, here's my last attempt. Could it be Tony Bennett at Virginia?
Well, Tony Bennett at Virginia, no. I mean, he's met with some really good success here. I think the bad black eye he's got, obviously, was that UMBC loss, the first round ever, the first
So he
game.
has a successful tournament record overall.
Yes, he does.
Okay.
Yes,
All
yes.
Right. And by the way, conference-wise, keep in mind, Michigan State is the last Big Ten team to win a championship. I just can't believe that, since 2000. And the last Pac-12 team to win a championship was Arizona in 1997.
Yeah,
Isn't that
been
crazy?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, Michigan State 2000, my goodness,
That's crazy.
Yep.
All right. Well, I asked that because Tennessee, to me, they were a team that I was definitely considering, and Rick Barnes is the one thing that I am the most concerned with because they're so hot. Even though the SEC's down, but they're so hot, and they quietly put themselves in this position, and they've got some nice wins this year, and they're 16-1, which is not bad. We're not talking about a 5-1, 6-1 Tennessee. 16-1. I might still throw a few bucks their way.
I can understand that completely for the way they played this year. But again, will that coach get them there?
Yeah.
That's the question.
We'll see about that. Okay. Now, let's stick in the South, excuse me. And no, actually, you know what? Let's move over to the Midwest. And this is where Kansas is. And I know Iowa is another one of these teams that has got that 4-game deal going on to win the Big Ten. So that's going to be tough. But I can't wait for a potential Iowa-South Dakota State round 2, 100-98 game. That could be quite something. But first of all, is this not... First of all, I can't believe... You talk about odds. I cannot believe, and I was so disappointed that Vegas was smart enough to make Providence only a 2-point favorite against South Dakota State. I thought I was going to get like 8 or 10. You got a 4 seed against a team that's never won a tournament game ever. And I was like, oh, come on, Vegas. Did you have to be so smart? Because I really loved South Dakota State in that one because Providence could be the biggest phony in this entire tournament.
Well, they could be. And, remember, we said this many times in the past. The odds makers in Vegas, the first thing they are handicappers. Okay, they're not just number crunching; they're handicapping games as well, the old-fashioned way. Okay, not analytics, but they're combining it all together. But they're still handicappers. If you look at Providence this basketball season here, they played so many close call games. They had so many games decided by 5 or fewer points. If a few of them hadn't gone their way, we'd be talking about them in the NIT tournament. But nonetheless, they're here. They're out of the Big East, and they're only a bucket over South Dakota State. And there's a reason they're only 2-point favorite over South Dakota State. It's because South Dakota State, I think they're the Jackrabbits.
Yes.
They are
top offense and top 3-point team. I think almost definitely combo between both. So they're a high-scoring team.
One heck of a basketball team here. They're on a major winning run right now. 5 starters back again. 30 wins this year. Okay, that's a nice recipe with a 5 returning starter team that was there last year, here again this year. And if you look at their head coach, Eric Henderson, remember that name, Eric Henderson. He'll be coaching at a much bigger level school here sooner than later, maybe even next year. They are 67-21 with him in his 3 years with this program here. Coaches like that don't last that long at schools like South Dakota State.
Sure.
If they go anywhere, they make it to the Sweet 16 here. You can look for Eric Henderson to be coaching somewhere at a much higher school, higher ranked level school.
And he might have to just win one game.
He just exactly
finally
right.
Get them over the hump and win a game. Like I said, South Dakota State, Iowa, could be the most exciting early game this week if they can match up against each other with those offenses. South Dakota State, meanwhile, and by the way, I asked you to pick one double-digit seed to reach the Sweet 16 and the Final Four, because and the Sweet 16 was kind of the main thing, because at least one double-digit seed has advanced to the Sweet 16 in 34, I believe, of the last 36 years, and that was your team, South Dakota State.
It is, for all the reasons we just mentioned here. You know, they're the type of a team that can catch fire, a type of a team that certainly no one is going to want to play in this tournament. Their offense was second only to Gonzaga's this year as far as being able to put points on the scoreboard. And if they win their first round game, if they can take Providence out the Friars here, I think they can catch fire, and they'd be the team that I would pick out of anybody that's seeded as a double-digit seed to possibly make the Final Four.
And I actually think the Midwest is the easiest region to me. I think it's more wide open regarding a team, like a lower seeded team. I could see. Matter of fact, right now I'm leaning towards Iowa being a Final Four team, and they would have to knock off Kansas to do that. But as far as a first round matchup, you have, well, actually, yeah. What do you think about? I mean, I like Wisconsin to get past Colgate, but what do you think about a team like Colgate and Wisconsin? Because Colgate's got some offensive firepower as well, and this might be their best team.
Colgate does bring a nice basketball team into the fray here. I think, unfortunately for them, they hooked the wrong team. An experienced Wisconsin basketball team led by Greg Fists of Fury Gard.
Oh, watch out.
Yeah, in that big brawl with Michigan, you know, that head coach, he's not going to take a backseat to anybody. He's not going to let anybody push his team around here for sure. But the thing about Wisconsin that I like is this. They were picked to finish 10th in the Big Ten this year.
Yes.
Yep. And what did they do? They played themselves right into this basketball tournament because they excelled in quad one basketball games. They stepped up and played really strong in games. And in fact, in games against other fellow tournament teams, Wisconsin beat 10 of those 13 opponents in those matches here. Too much pedigree here for Wisconsin in this basketball game. I think they advance in this game against a tough Colgate basketball squad.
Yeah, I actually like Wisconsin-Auburn matchup in the Sweet 16. And that's going to be a tough one. I can go either way. I'm not going to pick one of those teams to get to the Final Four, but that's going to be tough. I think it's going to be between, to me, I'm going to go Kansas, Iowa. The winner of that one gets to the Final Four. You like Kansas, right?
I like Kansas. I do. I like this basketball team pretty well. Iowa, I've got, I know they caught fire here in this Big Ten basketball tournament here, but they've got some holes here. And if they go to make it that far here, I think Kansas brings not only more pedigree, much better coach in this basketball contest here, but Kansas also, of all the number one seeds, they're the longest odds. Okay, so if you're going to take a number one team, take the one that has the longest odds. That might be Kansas. They play a 6-man rotation, they do, and they just wear you out. They shoot 56% inside the three-point arc, does Kansas here. They just beat you down low. And if you take a look at Bill Self, the $10 million coach, in his career as a number one seed in the NCAA tournament, his teams are 28-8. And in fact, when they're favored by more than 2 points as a number one seed, Kansas is 25-3 on the scoreboard in those basketball games. Is he likely to get upset? I like that 25-3 number to back Kansas.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, like I said, I kind of agree in a way. I think because Iowa would be obviously an upset because they're 22-1 to win the championship, whereas Kansas is 8-1.
That's correct.
To win the championship, which is again not bad for a number one seed.
No.
So okay, so give me, now that we're done going over each region, I'm gonna ask you a few more questions. Give me an outright upset to win a first round game. So the odds have got to be plus 180, 200. To win, what would it be?
Well, looking at the plus 180, 200 range here, I think a team that brings a lot to the table would be the Catamounts from Vermont.
Oh, I'd love it.
There you go.
You think they're gonna have like a fan edge being up in New York? Arkansas is probably. Why do we have to go up to New York to play Vermont in the West region? That's not fair.
No, that's not fair at all. Only one loss by Vermont since mid-December when they lost an overtime game.
Hartford, right?
Yes, this team shoots 40% plus on 3-point from 3-point land here. They won their title game by 39 points. Vermont did. That very, very confident basketball team. I'm not dissing Arkansas here. I love Eric Musselman as a head coach. They think they did a lot of good things this basketball season, Arkansas did, but they could be taking on the wrong team in this matchup here. So this would be my outright upset of a team that would get you plus $2 or more to pull an upset in the first round.
The only thing I'm concerned with is, do they have the athletic ability to match up with Arkansas? That the way they like to play Arkansas. That's what I'm worried about. I wish they would have gotten another matchup against a team that wasn't so, athletic, and they want to pick up the pace and they want to wear you down, because Vermont, they can shoot and all that, but they don't usually have a lot of success when you get outside their conference and you have to step up and play a team like that's what I'm worried about. But if they can get hot offensively, and if Arkansas maybe doesn't have the best shooting day, which is all it's about, college basketball, one and done, then that would be great. It would be really cool to see, because Vermont has been so successful for so long, but they haven't really done much. I don't even know if have they won a game yet, like in a while in the tournament?
I don't believe they have, no. Okay. Not that I'm aware of. But you don't find too many teams coming out of conferences like Vermont who are more athletic than teams from power conferences. All those good athletes are at those conferences. What Vermont will do is they will try and get Arkansas to play their game, okay, rather than Vermont matching Arkansas and playing their style of basketball. So if they can do that, they can be successful, and I'll cash that $2 ticket with the Cat.
Yeah. Well, you better put a little bit more than $2 on that one.
Well, plus $2 is what I'm saying.
Right. Let's talk about now you already gave me South Dakota State, because upsets do happen, as we know. Not that they happen very much with these higher seed teams or lower seed teams, whichever you want to put it. Like, for instance, when UMBC won, they're still the only 16 seed to win. 15 seed just won last year. Oral Roberts upsetting Ohio State. 9 times it's happened. The 14 seed happened last year too. Abilene Christian over Texas. So that happens a little bit more, obviously, than the 16 seed. So you gave me South Dakota State as a 13 seed. I'm not going to ask you to give me a 16, but out of the 15 and the 14 seeds, to pull off an upset in round 1. And by the way, Vermont would be another one at 13 seed, just like South Dakota State. But at 14 seed, you'd have to choose between Montana State, Yale, Longwood, forget about Longwood, and Colgate. So which 14 seed do you think has the best chance to keep it close and maybe pull off the upset?
None of the above.
What about Yale? I mean, Yale, they've been very successful under this guy Jones, who's been their coach. They haven't won yet. Actually, they did win one game, didn't they? They won a tournament game with this coach, Jones.
Yes,
I think they won it too.
Yes.
And they've been in almost every game. So, but again, I'm looking for an upset.
Well, Yale would be the type of an opponent that you could very easily play down to their level, coming out of the Ivy League, and the Ivy League being so hungry they didn't play basketball at all last year.
Yeah.
Out of that group you mentioned, I would agree with you. I think it would be Yale would be the leading contender.
15 seeds. We've got Fullerton against Duke. We have St. Peter's against Kentucky. Delaware against Villanova, and Jacksonville State against Auburn. To me, it would be St. Peter's. And I know Kentucky's Kentucky, but I like this season. And the coach may not be there next year because he's done such a good job at St. Peter's. I could actually see that game being closer to the line. I'm not saying they're going to win, but I could see St. Peter's covering that big spread.
Well, I agree. I think St. Peter's can cover this number here. It's a big number here, but we're talking upset, straight up wins. Yes, upset wins. That's another animal all
well,
into itself.
you have to do one of them. Somebody gives you $10. They say you got to put it on one of these 4. Which one are you going to do the free $10 on?
I'm going to do it on Delaware. Okay.
Ooh.
And one of the reasons being is that number 2 seeds are the most vulnerable as favorites in the first round of the tournament here. They're number 2 seeds for a reason. Number one, they wanted to be a number one seed, but something happened along the way where they didn't become a number one seed. They
Okay.
settled for number two. Okay, along the way. Our awesome angle in our newsletter is a fade against Villanova in this game with big time numbers behind it. Okay, uh, and you got a Delaware basketball team that nobody gives a chance to. Last year they won 3 basketball games. Okay,
Yeah.
my goodness. But they also, in their last NCAA basketball appearance, they did take on Michigan State and they played them pretty tough. They were a 15-point dog. They lost by 15 points. And this is also a Villanova basketball team that was only 7-6 against quad one teams. Now Delaware is nowhere near a quad one team, but what that 7-6 number for Delaware tells me is they are not a premier quad one type basketball squad. So of that group, I would nominate Delaware.
Okay. And now, as far as and actually, as far as some of these other games, I think we agree on Boise State against Memphis. You like Boise State against Memphis?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And do we agree with USC over Miami?
I think USC is a real sleeper team in this tournament here. Them and UCLA both out of the Pac-12 conference this basketball season here. And I got to give kudos to the Trojans here. They were wiped out. They lost Evan Mobley to the NBA draft. He's with the Cavs now. He's leading contender to be Rookie of the Year. That was a big, big loss off that basketball team. But what do they have on their team this year? His brother, okay? And his brother is leading Southern Cal here. So it runs in the family. Only one Mobley, not two Mobleys for USC, but still a well-balanced basketball team here. I think they can make some noise.
Yeah, that's why I'm not even sure about the Auburn USC matchup potentially. I could see USC definitely beating Auburn now.
Well, that's in my brackets. That's exactly what I have happening. USC to take Auburn down.
Okay. And by the way, in that same region, I just mentioned how I like Iowa, but I could definitely see a potential upset there with Richmond because they had so many. You talk about veteran team. I was surprised that they struggled so much during the regular season. I expected Richmond was going to just get an at-large this season. That's how good I thought they were. But they waited until the tournament, and then they came on the way they needed to, and then they won the conference, automatic bid, or else they weren't even going to get in. But all these same guys, these veteran-tested guys, are back. So I could see Richmond maybe pulling off an upset against Iowa as much as I like Iowa.
I can as well. You've got an Iowa basketball team that 4 games in 4 days. We outline this in our tournament guide here. That is not a good role for teams that come into this tournament, especially laying the kind of wood that Iowa's laying here. They're very, very satisfied. They're fatigued for openers. Okay,
Yeah, it's 11.
Yeah. Now they have to get back up and lay double digits after winning the Big Ten 4 games in 4 days here. I think it's a bad spot for Iowa.
Yeah, see, the difference with Virginia Tech for me with Texas is right now the latest line I have is Virginia Tech getting 1 from Texas, but that's different. Richmond's getting 11 from Iowa, and they had the 4. So yeah, so I'd say that's a tricky call. I'd probably throw a couple bucks on Richmond on the money line on that one, just in case.
I think I would too.
And the other upset that I'm thinking about potentially in the first round would be UAB, because Houston is not 100% healthy. And UAB, I don't know. I just got this feeling about this UAB team. You know, they've got they're offensively strong team. It's going to be UAB's offense against Houston's defense, and I don't know. Houston, Sampson's done such a good job there, but I think he's almost done too good of a job because I'm not sure this particular team with the roster of players he has going into this tournament is going to do much. But it's still not saying much. You got Illinois. They could easily win a couple of games, but I still think UAB may not be a bad sleeper in the South to win a game or two.
All season long and more recently here this past month, I've been touting the Houston Cougars to anybody that would listen.
Oh.
I think they're a very dangerous basketball team. Number 1 in the country in defensive field goal percentage, and that goes a long, long way in tournaments like this. Very, very sound defensively, this basketball team here. Then lo and behold, what happens to the Houston Cougars? They draw the number 5 seed, the dreaded number 5 against the 12, okay, which has never been any good. In fact, of all the top 8 seeds in the tournament, no number 5 has ever won the tournament. Okay, so now you're putting Houston
Wow.
into this particular role. Okay, because they hammer them down with the number 5 seed coming into this particular basketball game here. They were only 1-4 in their quad one games. They only played 5 of them because they don't reside in a very good neighborhood. They're not a major conference basketball team. That's why they don't even aren't even considered for our 8 elite elements, because one of the reasons qualifiers is you have to come from a major conference, which Houston does not. So they obviously wouldn't or won't make the list. In UAB, you got a very dangerous basketball team here that comes in here. They were a dog 3 times this year. They won the money all 3 games. Did UAB.
Oh.
And they're also very, very good. The better the competition, the better UAB this year. 11 times against 666 or better teams. They cashed 8 of those 11 games. Very dangerous dog in this game, the Birmingham Blazers.
All right, now let's talk about the whole enchilada, and I'm going to start by asking you to give me. Now, I've already asked you to give me a 7 seed or lower to reach the Final Four. Now I'm going to ask you to pick a 4 seed or lower to win the championship. And this is one of those teams, by the way, that happens to be in your Final Four. So which is one of those teams? And we talked about them to start the show, pretty much.
That would be the UCLA Bruins, okay? The team that's, like I mentioned before, healthier than they've been all season long, made the Final Four last year, bereft with injuries this basketball season here. Very, very dangerous team. Remember, I love teams that started out preseason rankings ranked real high and underperformed. When they get into the NCAA basketball tournament, they have a chance to make amends. And if there was a reason for their underperformance, it really comes out in a tournament like this. The
Especially with
injuries
the
were that
injuries you
reason.
talked about.
I'm sorry?
Especially with the injuries you talked about. They
Exactly.
factor there. Now they're
They were
healthy.
the number 2 team in the AP
Yeah.
preseason poll, UCLA. Very, very dangerous. Mick Cronin has been here and done that before. I got to make them the seed that if you're going to have a seed that's ranked 4 or lower, it would be UCLA for me.
Yeah, I like them there as well. So okay, now as far as your picks, if now you have 2 1 seeds making it, you have Arizona and Kansas. You had to pick just one because it might just be one. Which 1 seed makes it, Arizona or Kansas?
The 1 seed that I think wins the tournament, and
Kansas.
that would be Kansas. Exactly right. Arizona, for the aforementioned reasons about the new coach, the young team, as you mentioned here, a good point about all young kids in that basketball team. Kansas, a very experienced basketball team here, been there, done that before. Those would be my 2 number 1 seeds to make the Final Four. UCLA, the number 4 seed, as we just talked about, also being one of those Final Four teams. The 4th and final guy would be the Duke Blue Devils. And this is a hat trick play, okay?
You're
A
what?
hat trick in the sense that we all know it's Mike Krzyzewski's last go round, okay?
Uh-huh.
It was his last final home game for Duke when North Carolina come in there and they blew his drawers off, okay? There were so many celebrities in that game at Cameron Arena against North Carolina.
Distraction.
I mean, the people that were there were unbelievable. Adam Sandler, movie stars, athletes, coaches, and they got wiped out. Okay, so what do they do? Chance number 2 for Duke in the ACC tournament. They get blown out in the ACC tournament. Duke does. This is the basketball team that was the best head and shoulders team in the conference all year
Yeah.
season long. So now here they come as a number 2 seed, a basketball program here in the Duke Blue Devils. Here, I think they will stand up and avoid taking that hat trick embarrassment loss here. Make it to the Final Four for the Duke Blue Devils in Coach K's final harangue.
All right. So again, your final 4 teams are UCLA, Kansas, Duke, and Arizona. Kansas is your pick to win the championship. And since the seeding there, the highest seed team you have in there is UCLA at 4. What would be your give me a team, because we've gone over South Dakota State and Colorado State as potential Final Four kind of teams, but do you have one that you can give me for winning the championship? Not a Cinderella, but And I don't know, would that be Colorado State, or would you rather just? I'll pick those teams to get to the Final Four. But if you're talking about winning a championship, that's a different story. I'm going to give you a different team.
Well, if I can't use UCLA, it's a number 4 seed. They wouldn't be
give me
so
somebody that's like a 5 seed or higher.
Yeah, that would come out of nowhere to do something like that.
And I'm sure you're not going to take a 5 since the 5's never won. And I know you wouldn't do that.
Well, 5's never won. If out of the you're right, out of the top 8, the 5's never won. Exactly right. So if I can't use them, and we're going to dismiss Baylor because of them being the defending national champion, UCLA, I think, will take Baylor out in this particular role here. Villanova is going to take on Arizona, but they're a
2 seed.
They're a 2 seed, so that's not going to matter. Wisconsin can make some noise, but they're a 3 seed.
They're a 3 seed.
Yeah, I mean, my goodness, I'm looking at my bracket here right now as I'm speaking to you, and I got to tell you here,
Iowa's a 5. Houston's a 5. Again, not that they haven't won yet. 5. Connecticut's a 5.
Here, I'm going to go so far as to say this.
How about Michigan State?
No.
7 seed.
No.
That's my Final Four team, by the way, in that region.
And I can't use Houston because they're a 5. They're not big enough, correct?
Okay.
Is that true? I mean, they're not a Cinderella.
No, 5. I can give you 5.
Well, then give me the Houston Cougars.
Okay, Houston will be your surprise potential team outside the top 4 seeds.
Yes.
All right, mine's going to be Michigan State, and I'm going to go with Tennessee, Kansas, UCLA, and Michigan State in my Final Four. And then I'm going to probably go with UCLA to take on. That's the thing. You know what? I'll probably take UCLA and Tennessee because I want to take the UCLA 18-1 and the Tennessee 16-1. I think those are good values for those teams. I hope they get to the championships, and then if they do, then I'm winning either way. So I'll take UCLA, Tennessee in the championship, and I'll take UCLA. To win it. How long has it been since UCLA has won a championship? That's been since what's his name was there, correct?
John Wooden?
No. Howland was it? What's his name?
Ben Howland, right.
Ben Howland. That was right. Ben Howland, right?
Yeah, I believe it was.
Jim Harrick won in 95. What did Howland win a championship?
I don't know. That's a really good question.
Let's see. I'm not seeing it. No, Jim Harrick was the last head coach to win a championship for UCLA back in 1995.
Jim Harrick, yeah, wow.
Jim Harrick.
Yeah.
What's he doing nowadays? Is he like an analyst or something? Probably. All right. So once again, go to patreon.com/PrimeSN. Pick one of 2 tiers, $5, $10, how cheap that is. You also get the opportunity, by the way, to talk to Marc with those tiers. So that it gets you opportunity where you can ask Marc questions about anything, and Marc will get back to you as soon as he gets the chance because he's such a busy man. But he will communicate with you. He will answer your questions. That's part of the packages as well. So why not take advantage of it? And again, if you just think it's too late for this season for college basketball, we'll give you 2023 for college basketball as well, of course, 2022 for the NFL and college football. If you decide to pick all 6 of those packages into one tier, which would be tier number 2 for $10. So it's a great offer. And Marc, we'll talk to you next Wednesday when we preview the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I'll look forward to that, Greg. I'm also going to look forward to a great weekend this weekend. Nice to have the March Madness tournament back in full stride. And I'll look forward to catching up with you for Sweet 16 next week.
Sounds good, Marc. Appreciate it.